So namaste. We'll slowly come out of the meditation and start this satsang on non-duality. And I first feel like asking some of you, what is non-duality for you? Anyone feels like answer? What is your perception of non-duality? Okay. So I will start. And that's a big theme in spirituality, where there can actually be quite some misunderstanding or a little bit of confusion, because it's not to put some fire or to be in oppositions with some theories, with some approaches of spirituality, but there is sometimes some quick understanding which can lead to misunderstandings. So sometimes the conception of the misunderstanding about Advaita philosophy is that there is no duality because there is no world and there is no ego. So of course, if you put aside ego and the world as illusions, there is absolutely non-duality because they do not exist. So that's beautiful in theory, but that's a little bit of a shortcut or a little bit of a misunderstanding. It's true that the world and ego are illusions. It's true. What is the ego but just thoughts we take seriously? It's not real. It's an impression, a print we have. We believe our mind, but it is not true. Our thoughts are just little clouds we take for reality. So in a way, ego is an illusion. But some shortcuts, some bypass have said that it's an illusion, so no need to pay attention to it. We don't need to pay attention to it, and therefore, if we put it aside, there is no duality. But that's not taking into account what is reality. And reality, what is reality? Always come back to reality for answers. And reality is here and now. There is no other reality. Here and now is the only way you can meet yourself, is the only way you can have answers. The rest is a theory. It takes into account concepts and everything, but it is not here and now sometimes. A theory is never here and now. So what do we have? Always here and now. What do we have? I cannot hear you, Mila.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
What's here and now would be my physical sensations, thoughts, feelings, and what I see right now around me. The trees outside the window.
So you see the trees outside the window, and you see sensations. You're aware of sensations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. Can you say there are always two things?
Yeah. So it's the awareness, and the awareness that of what I am experiencing here and now.
Wonderful. So there is always awareness, the subject and the object. The thoughts you have, the feelings you have, what you see outside, the objects outside, the objects as emotions and thoughts inside. But you know that. So awareness is there. You know what's going on inside and outside. There is knowing. So here and now, you always have the subject, pure awareness, the real. This is you in a permanent basis, because whether you know it or not, even, knowing is always there. Sometimes you don't know, but you know that you don't know. I know I feel good. I know I don't feel good. I know I am in a high state of consciousness, or I know I am depressed. You always know something. Even when you know I don't know. I know I am lost, or I know I am not lost, but knowing is permanent. Knowing is there. So this is the anchor of the self. It's your deepest self. It's you in a permanent way. You that is not dependent upon external or inner conditions. And remember that, really remember that. You are not dependent upon inner or outer conditions. You're already free as pure consciousness, pure knowing. I know something. And it doesn't matter how I feel or how what my thoughts are. It doesn't matter for pure consciousness, because I recognize myself. And that's the deepest freedom. So when you know that, you realize that here and now there is always a subject and an object, whether as external objects or inner feelings, inner thoughts, inner emotions. The object and the subject. And I call that the screen and the movie. The screen is always white, pure knowing, pure consciousness, doesn't depend upon anything, because it recognizes itself. So any movie can come on the screen doesn't change. It remains white. Because it recognizes, it made a difference between the screen and the movie. I know myself as pure knowing. I know I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I am not my emotions. I am not even my body. I'm just the awareness catching my body, catching my emotions, catching my thoughts, but I am permanent and dependent of whatever I catch. So this is here and now. This is reality. Here and now, you always have that. Whether you feel empty and thoughts-free, no emotions right now, blissful, there is always awareness, recognizing what is. Recognizing the pure state of being as emptiness, silence, meaning nothing is there right now, but I don't even care whether knowing is there right now, because I'm free from both, from silence and from noise. I am the beyond, always the beyond as pure awareness. So awareness always recognizes something, even emptiness, even silence. It is beyond absolutely everything, the pure nothing, the pure knowing. You cannot define it, because it is what it recognizes, even emptiness and silence. But it still recognizes it, so it's still beyond it. So don't forget that. Here and now, the subject and the object. And what is non-duality then? What is non-duality here and now? So let's see, if I am the awareness, and so pure awareness, if we go back to theory, pure awareness sees the feeling of greed, the emotion of anger, selfishness, and say, well, there is greed inside me, there is selfishness, there is anger. Fine, because I know who I am and I can see them just as simple objects on my table. I can see them. So that's non-duality, because I recognize myself and I see what's on my table as it is. No filter, no deviation, no escaping, no hiding. Direct awareness, direct embracing. I recognize myself, I embrace what's in front of me. That's truly non-duality. And this non-duality can become bigger and bigger as an individual experience. As an individual experience, sometimes we block, we cannot see our meanness, we cannot see our jealousy, we cannot see how we can be lying to ourselves. We don't want to see that as individual consciousness. That's where we put a filter over pure consciousness that directly can access reality, can access the truth of what is here and now. That's pure consciousness. That's when you realize the self, you recognize what is here and now as it is. That's self-realization. You don't hide. You're open to the truth of what is here and now. But what is individual mind? What does it do? Individual mind has a wall. It took itself as a body-mind very seriously. It has a habit of judging itself, of defining things as good and bad, as proper or improper, and therefore it cannot watch reality directly. It cannot open to the truth of here and now. So that's where we have duality. Although the self, the empty screen, absolutely, ultimately is non-dual, because it has, the deeper self has already said yes to all aspects of ego and humanity. As an individual experience, we have certain filters preventing that openness to be realized within our body. It is realized in absolute terms, but within our body, we have put filters. The filters of our fears, the filters of our judgments, the filters of our limitations as mind. And it is fine to have this filter. Don't forget who you are. It is all fine, but just see them as filters. Just see them as filters. That's where it's a subtlety of spirituality. That's where there is a lot of confusion. Because some people say, just ignore them. They are not true. But if you ignore them, you're not embracing reality. You're not into oneness. You're avoiding what still, in fact, disturbs your mind. And you cannot avoid what still, in fact, disturbs your mind. So meet what disturbs your mind, breathe, and it's okay. But you are pure knowing. You don't escape reality. You don't escape being conscious. Being conscious is being who you are. It's about knowing what is here and now. And that is non-duality. So this is what I wanted to say about non-duality. And now if you have any questions, if you have any troubles understanding certain concepts, ideas, if you're not clear about certain things, or how to realize this non-duality that we deeply are. We deeply are this non-duality within, but we need to realize it at the body-mind level. And that's a challenge of the spiritual path, to realize who we are already, but to realize it. So it's your turn, and all questions are very welcome. Mila, you can, yeah.
Yeah, conceptually I get it, but I think my defenses are so strong that the filters are very strong. So how, like going to the gym so you know how to do things, how do I perceive, how can I help awareness see through the filters?
Yeah. So that's a whole challenge. That's why we say we cannot force anything, because if you're not aware of something, how can you become aware of this? If you don't want to see certain tendencies, we have sometimes some tendencies, and instead of saying, oh yes, it's my ego, we sometimes accuse others. Though this is your fault, this is your mistake, I am not like this. Sometimes we cannot see certain things. It's impossible. The mind sometimes develops certain patterns of protection that really prevent from seeing. So in this way, for sure, there is nothing to do because you're unaware, except that life will bring you to the point of becoming aware, because that's the beauty of life. It brings you to situations where you become aware. There is also, it's not to defend or to promote my book, but I wrote a book seeing that people were lacking it's all about being conscious. Self-realization is about being conscious. And because people sometimes lack awareness in some fields, in some aspect, I wrote a book to be helpful, to help. That I spent 5 years of really catching in every situation, every aspect of ego, the spiritual ego, the personal ego. And it's quite a lot of pages in my book. It can be quite boring, but I try to give it with some life experiences and everything, to give a sense, to give, it's a gift of awareness. Once you read awareness, you can recognize, once you have a pre-knowledge of awareness, of what is to be conscious, you can recognize it into your daily life. So I did it for that, so that it's very helpful. So in a way, you have the plate of awareness. You have consciousness on a plate, and that's helpful. That's very helpful to, when you go through it again in daily life, you can say, no, here I'm lying to myself. It's okay. It's okay to lie to yourself. It's okay. Everything is okay, as long as I see it. So seeing it is actually the challenge of consciousness. Because it's all who you are, knowing, seeing. If you don't want to see what is your inner reality, or if you escape the outer reality in the same way, you're still in duality, whether the deeper self is not in that duality. At the individual level, you're still in duality. And that's something really important to understand. So being conscious is actually having no issue with opening to all aspects of ego. And real non-duality is having no issue with absolutely no aspect of it, no aspects of ego. It's all okay. Any movie can come on your screen, any movie. You know who you are. So what to fear? And that is wholeness. When you have recognized yourself as the perfect, already free being, and once you also open to all aspects of ego, because you recognize yourself. So the more actually you recognize yourself, the more you're grounded in your deeper self, the more you can open and open and open and open and open without fear, or with fear, but recognizes them for what they are, to all aspects of life, which is all aspects of ego. And that is wholeness. That is a realization of wholeness. And that is true non-duality. There is absolutely no separation with life. The self is not separated from life. There is no separation with any being, because you're the space of consciousness deep down, the spirit, and consciousness is a space flowing through every cell of your body, through every cell of everybody, through absolutely all aspects of life and matter. So as consciousness, you're absolutely not separated from life, from matter, from the world, from ego, from people. And if you want to be who you already deeply are, the infinite self, the gate is self-acceptance, not only of your own little ego, but all aspects of ego, because then you can be who you truly are, the infinite space of consciousness flowing through everything. But if you don't accept ego, you also cannot flow through everybody. Imagine if I judge you, your ego, I cannot permeate you. I cannot be with you, because I judge you, which is also judging my own ego, as it is not separate. So deep down, the door is self-recognition and also acceptance of ego. And that is also very different from, there is also a lot of confusion when people hear, and this I always insist on, because when you hear there should be no separation inside of you with ego, and there is a deep self-acceptance of all aspects of ego, people understand that there should be total passivity in life, total acceptance of all situations in life. And that's a big misunderstanding, because you can say yes to all aspects of ego within, and actually this total absence of non-duality within makes you behave naturally in outer life. Yeah? So the inner yes, I always keep on insisting, the inner yes to all aspects of ego is not an obstacle to the outer no. That means you can still be very natural in your daily life and refuse this situation and say no to these aspects of life and say no to certain people and behaving naturally with boundaries in outer life, which are healthy, which prevents chaos, which prevents the absence of peace, which maintain balance and harmony. No is very important in your daily life, but no that comes from clarity, a no that comes from inner peace, a no that comes from total self-acceptance. The little self and the bigger self, and the little self, which is also the universal little self, all aspects of ego. So this is very important. Don't be confused between absence of duality within and still saying no in your daily life. And this is very important, not to fall into the trap of the spiritual ego, pretending to be peaceful in all situations, hiding anger, hiding certain emotions, because hiding is not realizing who you are. Hiding is preventing to be yourself. As long as you need to hide, you cannot open to the light that you are, because the light is the light on everything. And to open to the light is to be able to show your face to the light, to really open to it. So this is a real situation of self-realization. Be ready for the light, be ready for the truth. And that's being ready for non-duality, here and now. Is this clear for everybody? Yeah. And Roberta and Mr. Godby? You're Mr. Godby or you're...
Right there. So, yeah, here's my husband.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. You know, I just want to share, it's lovely being here with you. I'm on a silent retreat at home. So I really came to sit in silence to just be. But I'll say a little something because there's so few of us online. You know, maybe you can talk about the process of deepening. The recognition and the embodiment of awareness and presence lives here, and is always here, whether I'm fully, you know, fully steeped as awareness moving, or it's just a little bit behind, but it's always here. And I'm taking time in silence at home to do retreat, and to just keep settling and going, to just deepening, you know, taking the cloth and steeping in this. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that in your own process of deepening.
Yes.
And the fuller, you know, because let me just say one more piece. I'm aware of, because I've been on this path a lot of years, and there's been deep samadhis and enlightenment experiences, you know, that lasted 9 months. 9 months.
So what did you lose? Huh? And what
I never lost anything. But the you know, in those times it was sort of like bliss awareness, like moving in life. And then there was just less bliss and still awareness.
Oh, beautiful. You recognize that.
Yeah.
You recognize that.
And
huh?
now there's just peace. However, there's like, are there a lot of bliss or less bliss? It never, the bliss kind of stays more full, less full, doesn't really matter. It's here. This,
Okay, that's really beautiful, huh? Because you find what you cannot lose. As long as you attach to what you can lose, you haven't found the self.
yes,
So in your own words, what is a self?
this open, silent, spacious presence that embraces everything.
And why can it embrace everything?
Because it is everything. It's not separate from everything.
Yes, but you can, yeah, you can be that when you really recognize your quality. Huh? You can be that when you really recognize yourself. Huh? Because if you identify with what you mix with, huh? If you identify with what you embrace, you will judge. You will judge it. Huh? And if you judge it as bad, huh? If you're open, if you're this space, but forget yourself, which we do. We come to life like this. We are this space, not knowing itself. Huh? So you are in the world as a baby, completely open, feeling everything. And in this openness, we start feeling strange, feeling bad, feeling, this emotion is who I am. Huh? I feel angry, I am angry. I feel disturbed, I am disturbed. I feel confusion, I am confusion. So if we forget the white screen, the space of awareness, the watcher, the pure knowing, we identify with what we feel inside, with what we embrace naturally, that's our natural state. We identify with it, and then we start feeling bad about ourselves. Huh? That's what happens in life. We start feeling, something is wrong with me. Huh? We start taking the little self seriously. And the process is to again regain consciousness of what is in the background of all experiences. And this recognition allows to embrace, being one, deepening into embracing, deepening into the openness, and in order to have that true self-realization, which is not only a word, but a real experience, that whether I feel silent or not, it doesn't matter anymore. Like you said, it doesn't matter anymore. Therefore, nothing can really take away the bliss or the peace, even if you don't feel good. Huh? So to go through the deepening, that's what I want to say, because that's where there is quite some confusion. Some people say that to open to more and more and more aspects of ego is a mental process, huh? Because it's about wanting more. It's not that, but if you're a mother or a father, you have the fridge full of good, or the cupboards in the kitchen full of good food. You're not going to give poor food to your children. Huh? You want to give good food. It's natural. Huh? So opening to more food for the mind, or of the mind, knowing the mind more, huh? Which is more and more freedom. Huh? If you come to know the mind from a perspective of self-knowledge, huh? You know who you are. So from that point of view, you can open more and more and more to aspects of the mind, which is a deepening. And confusion, the connection to do that, here, you have to be careful. Because you can do that still with the mind catching you. And the mind catching you will be, okay, I know, great, there is this book, or there is this, or there is that, this technique, this process, I can open more and more to my ego. So by doing that, the mind becomes greedy. I need to get rid of my ego. So that is what mind does. He wants to do a deepening in order to feel better. If we let the mind catch over our awareness, again, he wants to do the deepening in order to feel better. He wants to do the deepening in order to become more free. He wants to do the deepening in order to become more silent. He wants to do the deepening in order to become more peaceful. He wants to do the deepening in order to become more blissful. And then, finished. Because you're caught by the mind again, although you're going to open to more consciousness, the mind will catch you. So when you go for a deepening of awareness, if you go through my book, or if you go through techniques, or if you go through something, really know how mind functions. Open to that deepening from really a place of awareness, of pure knowing. I know that, I know my ego, but I'm free already. Never forget I am free already. It doesn't matter how I will feel. It doesn't matter whether I'm caught by my mind, I will see it, whether I'm caught by my mind, wanting more and more and more from a greedy place, not from a place of just opening to consciousness, from a place of pure knowing. Receiving the gift of consciousness from the place of pure knowing, which is, it's okay if I feel better. It's better if I feel better, but I don't mind if I don't feel better. It's okay to feel I can be more free, but it's okay if I don't get that feeling, because I know who I am, and freedom is already at the core of myself, here and now. Huh? So that's a challenge. That's really a challenge when you know the mind, of opening to more consciousness from a place of deep knowing. That's really the challenge, because as soon as the plate of consciousness is offered, the mind, ooh, I can become a teacher, or I can have a little power, or I can have this, or I can, very, very subtly. But very, very subtly, the mind can get you. So really open to deepening, open to embracing more and more and more aspects of your own ego, which is aspects of life. Embrace life, which is a realization of Sat, Chit, Ananda. Huh? Sat, Chit is knowing who you are. Sat is opening to ego and all aspects of life. So really do that from a place of I know who I am. Meaning, I found the steadiness within me. I found pure silence within me that is not even dependent upon how silent I feel. I found pure bliss within me, which is not even dependent upon how blissful I feel. I found pure peace within me, which is not even dependent upon how peaceful I feel. Don't lose that pure knowing, which is absolutely nothing. It is not a state. It is absolutely nothing, just an openness to what is without deviation, without hiding. Or if you hide, you see you're hiding. So there is still no deviation, no hiding, no filter. You just recognize what is here and now, whether it is a lie or the absence of lie, whether it is being blissful or absence of blissfulness. Just you recognize what is here and now. So when you go through a deepening, never forget who you are. Remind yourself that the mind will be greedy and very subtle in wanting more and more and more and more. So open to fullness, but from a place of freedom. Open to fullness with wisdom. Open to fullness without being carried away. Open to fullness and to the deepening, while keeping in mind that it is fine whether you feel good or bad. It is fine not to have any results. It is fine not to change. It is fine to be yourself here and now, no matter what, because you have deeply recognized yourself. So self-recognition is really the root, and recognizing the quality of self, of the self, is really the root to go through this deepening without again losing yourself, the quality of the real self, that is so easily lost, especially as you connect now the empty side of yourself, the pure knowing, with the fullness of yourself, all aspects of life and ego. So that's a challenge of connecting the sky, the empty space, with the earth, all aspects, the embracing of life. That's a challenge of connecting the masculine and the feminine, the stability, the permanence, with the movement, with life, with all aspects of ego. Not that the feminine is ego, but the feminine is the openness to life and ego. Let's not be confused on that. The feminine is not ego, it's just openness to life and to ego. So that's meeting of feminine and masculine inside, and whether it happens outside or not, it doesn't matter. But just don't forget that. And if you go through this deepening, which you are, because you've understood a lot. When if you go through this deepening, don't lose truth. Don't hide. Know how the mind works. Know how the mind will want more and more and more from a greedy place, not a place of pure knowing. Open to consciousness, because why not? If the kitchen cupboard is full of good stuff, go for it. Why not? It's natural. But don't be trapped into, I'm going to eat it all and become very healthy. No, don't lose the perspective of your inner freedom that is already perfectly realized, open to all aspects of consciousness, but from clarity, with detachment, with no expectations. Is this clear, Roberta? Yeah. The deepest quality of the mind, even in subtle way, is keeping a certain type of power. Keeping a certain type of power. And as you go through the deepening, you find that this power, even when you don't expect it, it's going to catch you in very, very, very little corners, in very subtle ways. So be aware of that, and know how to say no to the games of powers, in and out. And that's very important. That's very important, because mind functions on fear and power and protection. So know that, and be aware as you come into that deepening, it will become more subtle. And the spiritual ego is very subtle, very, very subtle. And don't hide the truth to yourself, and don't hide also the truth in your daily life. I mean, there are things we don't want to see. There are things, I think it's called white lies. If it's against harmony, you can still lie. If it protects, if it still respects others or yourself, you can have a certain veil. It's a symbolic veil of the religious people. It's symbolic for the sake of harmony, out of your sensitivity. But what I mean by don't hide the truth to yourself is with your inner self. Don't lie to yourself. That's what is really important. If you have a lie, you see it. If you have a certain very, very, very subtle need for power, you see it. If you have to say no in daily life, you say no and you tell your truth. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, Mila?
Tilicho, I feel like I just met and got to know my true self, the consciousness, the awareness, and it's not there, and that self is not around me all the time. And from what you just said, that the key is really, really knowing who I really am. How do I get
Don't worry, you'll keep forgetting. Don't worry.
So how can I get to know that true self more and more?
Who knows this question?
Yeah, my awareness, the awareness knows this question.
So can you lose the knower?
I can know the knower is always there, but my connection with the knower, it's like a poor Wi-Fi connection. It comes and goes.
So the connection with the
two bars of the cell phone.
The connection with the knower is alignment with truth. This we lose. The knower is there. But what prevents realizing knowing, the knower, when we inquire within, we see that knowing is there. Self-inquiry. The purpose of self-inquiry is recognizing the knower. But that's not it, like you said. We can catch the knower. I go inside myself, I explore how I feel. There is knowing of feelings. There is knowing of a little pain here. There is a sensation here. There is emotions. Maybe I have thoughts. I don't have thoughts. I know I have all of that. So the knower we can catch. Now, realizing, like I said, realizing knowing in daily life, that means being conscious. The knowing is consciousness. It is conscious of what's going on inside. But being consciousness in daily life is what is difficult. So it's both simple. If you stick to self-inquiry, I know who I am, it's halfway. People don't like to hear that on the Advaita path, but I have to say it because it's otherwise it maintains people in what I call the golden cage. They realize, wow, there is knowing, and that's it. The rest doesn't matter. No, if you are consciousness, you know all aspects of objects. You know all objects. You're not afraid of seeing the waves of the ocean because you recognize your water. Otherwise, how can you be water separate from the waves of ego? So self-inquiry, understanding your knowing, catching the essence of knowing is one thing, but you will never realize who you are if you don't open to recognizing what is here and now. When it's a big stone in you, I always say that, if it's a big aspect of ego, catch it. If it's little bubbles, I don't feel comfortable, I feel a little bit annoyed, it doesn't matter, it's okay, all of that is okay. But when you have a recurrent pattern, a recurrent something that again and again and again disturbs your life and disturbs your mind and disturbs you, welcome it, embrace it, open to the truth. So it's one thing to recognize knowing is always there as a deeper self, and you catch the deeper self. You see, wow, really, I am that. You are that, and now realize that. And that's a difference. That's where is a tough job sometimes. You know that, but realize that. That means shift from self-inquiry to openness to life. Shift from cheat, recognizing consciousness, to being consciousness. And that's a realization of Sat, open to life, open to truth. Be aligned with truth. So that's where it is difficult to be conscious. So again, I'm sorry, it's not to promote the book, but it is there. You will have a pre-knowledge of all aspects of ego. You will have a pre-knowledge of what you resist inside. So in order to open in a true way to consciousness, to all aspects of life, to all aspects of ego, check through the book what disturbs you inside your body. Check through the book what you still resist, because you have the wall on the field, on the against your deepest nature, which is already open. But if you have a memory, which is a false thought, a memory is not true in itself, but it is a print into the field of your awareness that prevents you from opening to that field, that prevents the self from being conscious, that prevents the self from aligning with truth. The mind has a root, infinite root. So at the root of the mind, you have the infinity of consciousness. But through the body and your individual consciousness, it becomes a little bit smaller. And that's a little self. The little self and the big self are the same. But in between, there is a wall of your body and the wall of your mind, which prevents, which puts a little door, a little gate there, which prevents opening to the truth of here and now, because you're still judging it, you don't want to see it, or you're unconscious of it. You're not aware. So to be awareness, to be consciousness, to have a pre-knowledge of all aspects of ego is very helpful. Otherwise, life shows you in daily situations what you still resist. Mila? So to be simple, in daily life, if you don't want to have a pre-knowledge through the book of all aspects of ego, in daily life, the body tells you when you're blocking, where is your wall. So remember that in daily life, contraction, or I don't feel good, my throat gets, tight, my belly hurts, this and that. Ego, past memories, stuck here and there. So just bring your awareness in the body, feel where it is, and that connection with your body, that connection with a memory, with a contraction, with a wound inside your body, a memory that has been caught and you could not digest, even if it's from an old past that you inherited, or if it's a recent memory. If it has disturbed you, it is caught into your body. You didn't digest it. So it is caught. And whenever a situation in life will bring you back to that memory, you will feel it. And so simply connect with your body. Breathe. Okay, that's fine to be disturbed. That's fine not to feel good. You remember that. But you're connected with it. Huh? And in that welcoming, embracing what you resist in your body, you're still connected to your heart. Really know that, because you have no duality. When we have no duality, we are connected to the root of the mind, the infinite self, the infinite being, which is the infinite consciousness. And there is still, this is a heart. It is one with everything, and it talks through us whenever we say yes to how we feel, whenever we say yes to the body contraction, whenever we keep in touch with this body contraction. So this connection, whether we get rid of the tension or not, this connection, whether we get rid of our bad emotions or not, whenever we get rid or not of the anger inside, whether we get rid or not of the disturbance, it doesn't matter. I know who I am. It doesn't matter. But I contact it. I connect with my disturbance. I breathe. It's okay. So your body, don't forget, Mila, in daily life, if you don't have a proper deep awareness, your body will make you be aware of it. So it's a beautiful instrument. Connect with it. And don't forget, it doesn't matter to get rid of it, but it matters to align with how you feel, to align with that deviation, with how you are here and now, what's going on here and now.
It's like the mind says, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be so judgmental. So it goes away, but I think that's bypass. I don't think that.
So, first of all, if you also at the level of judgment, you don't have judgment. It's still the mind that judgments. So, if you say okay to judgment, if deep down your body, I'm judgmental, how do you feel with I'm judgmental? How do you feel in your body?
There's something rippling at the pit of my stomach.
Okay, so don't forget, I'm judgmental, it's just a thought. It's not reality, but you take it seriously. So, okay, keep feeling it in your body. Great.
Okay, so just the fact of going down there and feeling it, it seems to soften.
Yeah, it softens. So be the friend of I am judgmental. You become the friend of I am judgmental. Okay. So keep the space, have the space for this thought. Welcome this thought. That's ego integration, because you're still judging judgment. Yeah. So welcome judgment in you. Once this is down, Mila, what happens? You're the friend of judgment. You're the friend of judgment. What happens when you're in contact with your thoughts, judgmental? You're at peace with that.
Right.
You will know from within whether it's natural in certain circumstances. We all do that, Mila. Don't be idealistic. In all circumstances, whether you're enlightened or not, you stay for a long time with some people, you're going to have impressions on some people. And sometimes they are legitimate. Huh? If someone comes to my house and starts doing whatever they want, have a big party at home, I didn't say yes, they didn't ask, and they use whatever they want, and they didn't ask, I will be judgmental, but in a natural way. I will say, hey guys, come on, this I don't accept. This, please, you could ask, or you could be like this. You could say it's judgmental, but this type of judgment is natural. It is what I call the natural self that says no to certain behavior, that has a feeling of what is harmony, that knows the boundaries, my self-respect, your self-respect. I know how to respect myself, and I said no when you don't respect myself. This is very healthy, Mila. So sometimes at that level, when we start defining ourselves as spiritual, we get a little bit lost because we put that's what I said, the spiritual ego mask on ourselves, the spiritual ego mask, where we have to be always perfect, as mind defines it, as mind defines it, always perfect. We start pretending. Oh, I have a phone call. We start pretending, we start playing the nice person, but we are no longer aligned with truth. You understand what I meant by aligned with truth? Recognizing things for what they are. And this, the more you make peace with your inner ego, the more the judgmental one, false identification, past memories, still playing within you as good or bad issues. Deep down, it's what it is. You're still judging. I am judgmental. You're not the friend of it. So the more you make peace with ego, the more you know from deep within, the more you can become natural, because something will rise in you. That is natural. So the more you're at peace with all aspects of ego, the more the real self, the real you can be out. And this is beyond good and bad. And your nature is beyond proper behavior. It is beyond spiritual beingness, spiritual idealism. It will be sometimes even surprising for your mind. Wow, how could I say that or do that? But that is coming from the deeper self. That is coming from your true self, from your true nature, which is self-realization also, beyond good and bad, beyond spiritual idealism, beyond all the things. So don't be afraid even of judgment. It can be very natural. It can be very helpful. It can be very healing for you and others to say the truth, to put boundaries, to say this I don't like. And the more you're at peace with your own judgment, the more it can come out softly, actually. Or the more it can also come out very strongly, because you're not afraid to be yourself, and you're not afraid to pretend, not to pretend anything. So this is the freedom of your true self. Make peace with all aspects of ego, and the self is really, really free to be yourself. And this is such a... You're free from people's, whether they like you or not, you know your truth. And this is a lot of strength inside. You know your truth. That's a freedom you are. You got it?
Yeah, yes, I do get it. And it feels less challenging than that.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems more natural, easy.
Yeah. We put so many complications on our life because of this, and how the mind can catch us in many, many aspects. How the spiritual ego can catch us in putting certain masks and certain behavior which are not natural. And sometimes it's a challenge. Wow, who will I be if I'm free? Sometimes we are actually scared of our freedom. Yeah. So don't be afraid of your freedom, and open to it, really open to it. Yeah. Hello, Sarah. I don't hear you, Ila. You said something?
What you said when Roberta brought up the deepening question, what I got out of that is they're not even goals. So I'm on a spiritual journey, but it's not even, it's just being there instead of having goals. Or this is the next step.
So that's a challenge. That's why I say it's a most complex issue, because it is natural if there is some keys to go for deepening, if there are some keys to go for deepening, it's very natural to go for it, huh? Because it's like if you have the house full of very healthy, a sauna, a jacuzzi, a swimming pool outside, it's very natural to use it instead of avoiding it. Huh? It's very natural. So if you have some keys to go for a deepening, go for it. But that's where I say it's very complex between I know who I am, nothing matters. Huh? I know who I am, so going into deepening also doesn't matter, but that's still actually a little bit of mind. Because if a deepening is offered, like a father and a mother who offer good conditions for the kids and the kids still want to sleep in the street, it's not natural. So that will still be mine, saying, oh, I'm already free, so it doesn't matter for me to sleep at home, I can sleep in the street. That's sometimes what some spiritual people do. I know who I am, so nothing else matters, I can still sleep in the street. No, if you have a good home with a good bed and a nice jacuzzi and sauna and swimming pool inside, why not? Huh? It's natural to move for feeling good. It's natural. But as I said to Roberta before, do it not losing who you are. So do it with a lot of awareness. And that's a challenge. That's why people actually are a little bit afraid of going into it, because they can lose themselves. But if you're guided through this, if you're guided through this process, that's why I say keep going to satsang, keep having sessions, because the mind has such strong, believe me, such strong habits of identifying to the mind, to itself, to mental habits and patterns. The mind has such a habit to be greedy. I only want now my good home and I never want to be in the street again. That can be also a consequence. The mind has such habit also to want a better home all the time. So this is mind. So you can still open to that deepening, but don't losing the quality of self. Whether I feel good or I don't feel good, it doesn't matter. Whether I have expectations or no expectations, I see them and it's fine. I see expectations, but I'm aware of them, so they cannot catch me. Whether I change or I don't change, it's okay, I know who I am. So that quality of here and now, it's always perfect, I'm already free, it's still there. But that quality should not also prevent from opening to a deepening, because as I said, it's also a natural movement. If we are at a stage in life when we can go into a deepening, why not? Because consciousness knows that a deepening is a great support of life. That deepening is not only for my own sake, but it's for the sake of the world. That deepening is a greatest force for change of life in general, because that deepening into yourself is helping, like the story of monkeys, one opening to a deeper consciousness, and automatically the other ones are opening to a consciousness. It comes after a certain number, change happens beyond change, beyond personal change. It happens because there is an opening, simply an opening into consciousness. But as long as we resist it, because deepening is not being here and now as already free, it's still the game of the mind. And consciousness, we should not forget, is not just pure neutral awareness, it's also the heart. And the heart cares the heart naturally cares. The heart naturally prefers change for the world. The heart knows, wow, there is quite actually urgency today, even if I'm free from urgency also, but I can recognize there is urgency for change. There is urgency for an opening into consciousness. But if people don't open, I'm still free, and I am still not careless, but I'm still free from the change of the world also. But I still do my best because I'm conscious. Do you see the subtlety, Mila? So I'm still everything. It's this subtle. Being conscious is subtle, and that's where there is a lot of confusion in the world, and in spiritual teaching also, and spiritual teachers also, and spiritual students, is because it is both. I care totally and I don't care. When you're conscious, is both. Uh, I am free from the world, and I'm free from people, and I'm free from even dying, and I'm free for all of that. And at the same time, because I recognize myself and everybody as I am, and I know how to open to consciousness can be the greatest force for change in the world. How an opening, without even changing, how an opening, simply an openness, a deepening into consciousness, is the greatest force, really the greatest force for transformation. So when you know that, you cannot be indifferent. When you're really conscious of that, you cannot try your best for a deepening of consciousness, but without expectations and without result. But you keep doing your best. It's like a river, it flows. But you have no expectation because you don't lose perspective of who you are. And that's wisdom. Still, you can be very, but still with no expectations. And that's again being free to be yourself. Sometimes you can be very strong, but hey, it happens, it happens, it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So there can be this strange mix of nothing matters and everything is very precious, which is a screen and a movie mixed together. Is that clear? So that's a big confusion, and that's where people are caught. In Advaita path, they are very caught in that. Very, very caught. And it's still the mind that says it doesn't matter, full stop. It's still the mind who says, I know who I am, I've done self-inquiry, I recognize myself, full stop. The rest doesn't matter. It is still the mind. And I insist on that because on the Advaita path, many, 90% of people are trapped into it. And it's important to say it for the sake of awareness, beyond accusations of, oh, she's judgmental, who does she think she is to criticize Advaita or to criticize this great sage, or to, it's not criticism, it's we have to open to a deeper consciousness. And some people are instruments for that, and I play the role for that, and I accept it. Sometimes not easy, but I'm okay with it. I'll be the bull. It's okay. I respect completely every sage and all paths. But consciousness is also evolving. And consciousness at the individual level is deepening. And we are at a time of a deepening of consciousness at the level of life, at the level of realizing all aspects of ego, and how some teachings have been a little bit limited in the presentation of truth, in helping people to really realize truth and the deepening into the ocean of consciousness. I stop. How are you, Sarah? Everything is fine? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just loving
Mind is silent.
it. No, I'm really touched by the. I watched yesterday a conversation with an interview where the person was speaking about the climate change and the changes that are probably inevitable on Earth, and I'm just deeply moved by it. Somehow these days I've been crying a lot, and I've been really just very deeply moved by it.
That's where we get touched, you know, as the heart of consciousness. That's where we get touched, because you see that all outer manifestation, all creation outside is coming from the state of mind. Really, climate is not different than mind. It's not different than mind. Nothing is different from mind. And mind is a source of all manifestation. So an opening into, a deepening into consciousness could make a huge change for climate, for everything, for all aspects of life, for rejuvenation of life and nature. And it could be very fast. The process of change and could be very fast, but people resist. It's a fact that people don't want deepening. They find all types of excuses not to go for this deepening, because they are still, whether they want to admit it or not, they're still identified with their ego. Even on the path of Advaita, they're very still identified with ego. That's why they don't want to open to ego. And it's sad. It's sad to watch. It's sad to watch that resistance. It's sad to watch how strong belief, which holds some truth, like I am already free, I am already, I don't need, the world is illusion, ego is an illusion, whatever has to happen will happen. How strong belief like this, under the sometimes aura of Ramana, which I admire Ramana as a sage, but sometimes in his teaching, I'm sorry, and I would say it more and more, sometimes in his teaching, there are some sayings which prevent that deepening. Not that he wanted to prevent that deepening, but his words have been either badly translated or wrongly understood. I don't know what it is, but the consequences are that people are stuck in the Advaita cage. They are really stuck. And they don't want to go into that deepening, because who cares? There must be ego that wants that. It's still the mind who's greedy for change, blah, 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 blah. But they don't understand the subtlety of how one can still be oneself and find the natural state and find the deeper opening that will bring a change to life. That will bring the openness to the feminine voice, that will bring the openness to the feminine energy, that can bring a change to life. And that's sad to watch, how the mind incredibly finds excuses, justification from sages, justification from all parts to prevent that deepening and opening. And the gift is there. The gift is there. The opening can be there. Everything is there. All the keys are there, and people are still afraid. And they don't want to open to something that can change and transform reality in a very fast way if there was a shift in consciousness, if there was this deepening. But what to do? That's where you have to be giving and still being free from that giving. And sometimes being ready to give up also. I've been so many times at the edge of giving up. And there are forces behind me that keep pushing me to continue, but I have to admit I'm at the edge of giving up. Sharing and giving, and it's really, after a while, it's tiring. It's very tiring. It is sad inside me. I feel sad. I'm still, emotions can be there because you feel you have something to share that is very important, and consciousness do not want it and project so many things on truth, and you realize how much the light, truth, whatever, not at the personal level, but the light is truth. Actually, people don't want it. It's a lie that people want enlightenment. It's a lie that people want to become spiritual. Their search is still fake, and I have to say it. It's a fact. And we have to understand the subtleties of spiritual messages. We have to understand the subtleties between the screen and the movie, and how they can mix, and how life, how the earth and the sky and the open heavens can be one, without losing the sense of freedom and independence, without losing it. But people are so afraid, and when they are under the guidance of what are considered as great sage, that's it. You cannot say anything. But I will keep on saying something. I will keep on sharing. And thank you, Sarah, for giving the opportunity. And it's been really a challenge on my personal level, on my path, to realize all of that and to see the resistance to that and to go through that while keeping the steadiness and seeing also the disturbance it brought a little bit in my life. And it's also part of my sharing and exploring it, and to offer the gift also of knowing the last resistance between, at the spiritual level, between the masculine and the feminine. And I didn't know I was a feminist in that way, but my spiritual path made me being aware of that and really realizing the deepest resistance of consciousness as in the body-mind, at the level of the body-mind, the deepest resistance towards that union. So the duality is still very much in subtle ways between the masculine and the feminine at the deepest level of spirituality. And this challenge, if we can cross it, if we can go through it, that will be the change society needs. That will be the change the world needs. But it's still a challenge. And at a personal level, and also in the world, we have to open to that deep, deep level of consciousness and that deep duality, to open to real non-duality and have an impact with what the world needs. And we don't want people to suffer. We don't want nature to suffer. We don't want animals to suffer. We don't want the climate to, the mind or the climate to dictate its rules. Huh? There can be a balance between the masculine and the feminine, which will be the balance in the climate, which will be a balance in the world. Rationality and love, coldness and hot. That's a climate, that's a seasons. That's a balance, but we don't want that. We don't want that. The rain is emotions. Everything that we see outside comes from inner states. So we need this opening. We need to realize it. It will come, I hope. I'm full of hope. I keep being full of hope. And I hope there will be a realization of that. How do you feel, Mila?
I was just feeling so much love for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And in your body, you were going through things? It's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, first I noticed the chair was very gently rocking just at the bottom of my spine. Just very subtle. And I just let it do what it wanted until it went
Wonderful, wonderful.
And faster and faster. And I still don't know why. Well, you explained.
Yeah. Let it all flow. Huh? Don't judge
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it actually feels nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have a question, if I
Yeah.
can.
So,
It's just a very abstract question. Like we were speaking about it, the mind is grasping or the mind is, but like I'm just wondering what does the mind actually? Because it's like it's not even anything somehow. Like we're saying it's grasping or it's doing something, but it's just like I'm wondering what is even grasping at anything? Just doesn't really it doesn't seem to be made of anything, and yet it seems like it's a something.
yeah. Yeah. So, mind and consciousness are the same thing, except that mind, consciousness, is also through the body. Huh? And when you go through matter, through the body, it has some prints coming from the body. Huh? So consciousness through the body develops a print, genetic prints, memories. Huh? Mind is memories that we believe. Huh? So sometimes we have parents who went through some patterns, have been hiding something, and we feel in our behavior there is something that comes from, we don't know what it is, huh? Some tendencies, some recurrent patterns that we have sometimes that belong to my branch of life, huh? And someone else's branch of life have other tendencies. Because when we go through a genetic line, we get a print. Consciousness gets a print, and that is mind, a print of memories on top of universal consciousness. Huh? And we think that's it. I am that. I am this memory in a way. I am this print. Huh? I am my suitcase, but I forget there is a hand holding the suitcase. There is a body holding the suitcase with a body of consciousness. Huh? So at the root of mind is infinite consciousness, but infinite consciousness knows that it has to go through a body to also be life and creation and being love. So consciousness without body and matters is nothing, but there is also no love. And love is consciousness embodied, consciousness in the body, that multiplies in shapes and forms. And that's a realization of consciousness and love, of silence and love, of the masculine and the feminine, of peace and love, the union of all. So that's a challenge of reuniting the vast emptiness we are and realizing within this body, by recognizing all the prints, and it's fine, it's not who I am, but I see them so that they don't catch me, they don't grasp me, they don't guide me. Huh? My fear doesn't guide me. My anger is controllable. I can say stop to it when I found it's enough. My this is, you see what I mean? By the grasp of mind over us, it's a grasp of patterns, memories, impressions that become our whole identity and drive us. My fear drives me. My and clarity drives me. My anger drives me. My jealousy drives me. My greed drives me. My I want more and more drives me. But when we recognize this print, they dissolve, and what remains is pure consciousness, pure knowing, that still doesn't escape the prints, that still doesn't escape the mind patterns, see them for what they are, but is there as presence, as recognition of what is, as embracing, as I see you, but I'm not swallowed by you. I'm not driven by you, because I see you. It's okay. And even if I'm driven by you, I see it, and it's still okay. Because I know, even if I recognize that print, even if I recognize that greed, even if I recognize this pattern of being afraid to truth, even if I recognize this, I know there is a certain inertia, you say in English? Like the big boat, it takes its time before it can stop. Not that we want to go to this movie, what was it called? The big boat, that sank.
Titanic.
Titanic, yeah. Not that we want to all be that, but there is inertia in consciousness. So we see our pattern, we see our patterns, we see them, they come back. That's where on the path of the deepening, there can be people give up sometimes because they have expectations. They think, oh, I've seen that mind pattern, I've seen it, and it's still there, and it's still there. And the mind still catch you at that stage to say, but there is no result. So it's not true, it's not efficient, it's not, they want results. That's a mind, the grasp of the mind. It grabs you to want results, to be upset if you don't change, to expect some things, so no, through a deepening into consciousness, there is this pattern, and it's fine, you know it, and you see this pattern coming back and coming back and coming back. It's fine, I know who I am, you can come back, but I see it, and naturally a certain tiredness comes. I'm tired to see you. Again, I'm like this. We identify I'm like this. Again, my ego is like that. Again, and my ego is like this. Again, and again, and again. But naturally, you really get tired of it. Naturally, you really want to stop it. And that's the point, like when you meet ego inside as a wave, when you meet your mind pattern inside your body as a wave, it actually increases. It goes up, it increases just before the letting go and when it dissolves. So it's the same in daily life. The more you're going to put a light on ego, you see it coming and coming and coming. It actually feels like it's increasing. But don't be afraid of this process. Really don't be afraid of this process. It doesn't increase ego. It's a process of dissolution. So see this pattern again and again and again and again, climbing. Again, I'm tired. And then suddenly, poof, it disappeared. Because you give it a space, you didn't judge it, you allowed that process of life, you allowed the process of getting rid of something, you give it full space. And that's the only actually fastest way to get rid of a pattern from a place of clarity. It's better, it's natural to want to get rid of something, but I know I'm already free, and it's fine. And if it doesn't change, it doesn't change. And if it increases, I don't panic, I'm not afraid, because I realize who I am. And if I have expectations, I see them. And if I get caught by my mind, it's also fine. So don't lose that. Go through that's again the challenge of meeting both. Of being clear and meeting ego. I'm fine. I know the wave inside my body. I know the wave also manifesting in my life. It's the same. And I go through it from a place of clarity. It's fine if I don't change. It's my mind. It's fine if I have expectations. It's my mind. It's fine if I'm really afraid. It's okay. So like this, I'm already free. I know who I am. Still, I go for the deepening. Still, I go for consciousness. I leave a room to mind patterns. I give a room for all of that, but without being swallowed by them. So that's sometimes a reminder we need. We need this reminder because we get caught by the mind at this time. You understand, Sarah? What I mean by being the mind grasping us? It's only memories, silly memories. So much printed in us, so much printed from millions of years of prints. That's a fear people have about opening to a deepening of consciousness. You know, it's so deeply in us that going to meet them feels frightful, fearful for the mind that still doesn't completely understand who am I. Not me, Tilicho, but me, the real I. Who am I? So when you really grasp the I, when you really get the quality of the screen, when you really understand its position, you can both remain in freedom, in steadiness, and you can at the same time open to change with a lot of consciousness, open to ego with a lot of consciousness, without being caught by the process of greed, without being caught by the process of change, and at the same time rooted in your heart that naturally wants change for humanity, that naturally wants betterment for life, for the situation of animals, for the situation of justice, for the situation of all of that. It's very, very natural. Consciousness that is not rooted in the heart is not completely self-realization. And consciousness that is rooted in the heart naturally wants betterment and change and transformation, but without expectations, but from a place of freedom, but from a place of I know who I am and I'm really free. So that's a big challenge to understand that certainty. And if there is still resistance to the feminine, which I call the openness to ego, there's still resistance. The mind has the best excuses. Consciousness, self-inquiry, as find the best justification and excuses and feed very subtly the game of fear, very, very subtly the game of fear, not to open to ego, not to open to that deepening. And it works. It prevents that deepening. And whenever there is a fear of that deepening, whenever this deepening is happening, and there is trouble at that level of deepening, it doesn't work, this path is accused, whereas the reason for the failure of this path is a resistance at that level. So it's really a very subtle game when the feminine, the openness, is accused, whereas the origin of all troubles come from the resistance of the resistance to this opening. So that's where there is unfairness. That's where there is injustice. Accusations are from the wrong place and to the wrong place. So that's I'm not sure that I'm clear with that. I'm not sure you got that, but that's what is seen when we explore consciousness at a deeper level. The feminine is accused, the sacred feminine is accused of lacking clarity, of being a troublemaker, because there is no need to open to ego, and opening to ego creates problems, whereas this is not at all the reason for problems. And you can experience that in your body. When you open to your ego, it actually dissolves at one point. Faster or later, it dissolves. Opening to ego, bring consciousness on ego, it dissolves. But resisting ego, it stays in the background and it drives people. And consciousness drives people, which is what we're experiencing in this society. Consciousness drives people, and unconsciousness drives people, and consciousness points unfairly at others, and this is very unconscious. So the mistake is not coming from the feminine path that has opened to both clarity and ego. Mistakes are coming from a lack of clarity and a lack of openness. And that's what we need to understand on the spiritual path. And there's still a lot of misunderstanding at that level. And some mouths are there to re-establish the balance. We need that balance for the climate. We need that balance for the world. We need that balance at all levels. We need it. And we have to keep an openness and full of hope and joy, and we have to. Obligations. No, plug to your inner nature, and that is always there. That is always there. Beyond any experiences. Believe, believe, believe in yourself. Believe, no matter what. Don't forget to believe in yourself. And see the beauty of life all the time. It is there, all around us. Nature, life, all of that is always the gift of the divine. We have to really believe in it. Believe in humanity. It has wonderful potential. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being there. And it was nice to meet you, Roberta. Nice to see you. And Mila, of course, to see you again. And Karen, I don't know who you are, but but I'm happy we were this little team. And I let you speak, Sarah. I let you, and thank you all.